Welcome to Cosmic Comics, Games and Collectibles, your zen of geekism. We carry comics old and new, magazines, toys, games like Pokemon, Magic, D&D. Want Godzilla, Ultraman, Star Trek, Ninja Turtles, Funko Pops? You'll find it all here. Shop our Cosmic Sound Room and pick up a record or two. Enjoy our Comic Coffee Lounge with a cup of Sasquatch coffee or a delicious menu item while geeking out over a super cool movie on our big screen. Come by and say hello to Maui. Cosmic Comic, Games and Collectibles. Superman loves us, and so will you.
And good evening, everybody. I am RJ Carter, Senior Managing Editor here at CriticalBlast.com. And it's time for the LCS Guys show, where we like to sit down with some local comic shop owners and talk about what's been going on in the industry in the past 2 weeks from the retailer perspective. Tonight's going to be a little bit different because it's Free Comic Book Day. So a lot of our retailers are worn out, exhausted, and on the road. So tonight's the LCS Guy show. We'll just call it that. And we have with us also a creator who has graduated from the crowdfunding market into the retail area. So his book is going to come on shelves. So we're going to have some interesting one-on-one about what it's like to bust into retailing and some Q&A from that perspective with somebody who's been in the business for over 40 years. And with that, I would like to welcome to the show Mr. Michael Tierney from Little Rock, Arkansas. Michael, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, doing real good. How you doing there? Great to be here.
I'm doing really good. It's been a week in comics. I don't know. Do you get to keep up on the comic book news now that you're just kind of doing this out of your recliner and filling orders?
Yeah, I'll keep up with ICV2.com. I don't read a lot of the other news anymore, though. I don't have to try to keep track of what artists or what cover's been squished or all that other nonsense of, okay, well, now this story's going to have this story instead. All the jumbling and show games they play with the content.
Yeah, well, this is the week where we're getting back into superhero romance stuff again, because Tim Drake Robin is out of that closet. So he has officially asked for a date with a boy from his class. So that's out there. That's dangling. He is now officially bisexual according to DC Comics. And I've taken the contrarian route that I'm like, if they're going to do it with anybody, Robin works because he's only 16.
Green short pants.
Those green short pants, yes. Yeah. We kind of already knew it, yeah. But yeah, he's 16. That's about the time that you start figuring stuff out about yourself and how you feel about things. So, everybody's saying, hey, 30 years of history. He's only looked at girls. I'm like, no, you have 30 years of history. He's only got 2. It's like binging television in a TARDIS. You step out and not as much time has passed as you've passed. So we'll see where that's going to go. As long as Batman and Ghostmaker don't get any more chummy than they are, I'll try to be content with it. Also joining us tonight, we have Mr. Larry Higgins, whose comic book NYOBI is graduating from crowdfunding and going to Antarctic Press. Exciting Comics number 13.
Yeah, whoa, that's me.
That's you. That's you. It's your cue, man.
Yeah, brother. We're 24 hours into this brand new campaign, so I wouldn't quite say, that I've graduated from crowdfunding, because we very much still is primarily, I would say, a crowdfunded book, right? That's where we, that's the meat and bones of our money. Without, it's like this. I could be with the Antarctic Press all day, but if we don't have a book to give to them, then there's nothing for them to print. And the only way that we can get the funding to pay for artists and, guys like Matthew Walden or Luigi Terrell, you know, or Steph Wilson or CB Zane, all these great, you know, variant cover artists, and, you know, Juan Antonio, who draws all our interiors. The only way to sort of pay these guys, you know, can't be from my 9 to 5 job, because I don't make that much. So it's got to be from crowdfunding. So if the crowdfunding's unsuccessful, then we have nothing to give to Antarctic to print. So
Gotcha. So this is sort of one of these. It's kind of blended then. You know,
it's a do or die situation. You know, and it literally is, man. This crowdfunding has to do well so that you know, everyone can get paid. You know, because I've been paying for everything out of my pocket. So, you know, we're gonna need printing money. We're going to need shipping money. You know, we're going to need money for the tchotchkes and the Gemini mailers and, you know, all that great, wonderful stuff that comes with shipping comics, you know.
you should hire out for that. I know a guy.
Yeah, so I keep hearing. Yeah. But, but, you know, we're 24 hours in, and I think we're like, I don't know, 92% funded or something like that. It's really close to being funded, but being funded is sort of like the halfway mark for us. You know, we got to go above and beyond just sort of, you know, getting by.
Yeah, because you set a goal, but, you know, you really need twice what the goal is.
But if you know, and the danger, you know, people will be like, okay, then so why don't you ask what you really need? Well, if I come out here and I ask for 10 grand, let's say, right, that's a lot to ask for, and if you don't make it, then you get absolutely nothing. You know, like. So, you know, you plan your
play the psychology game.
What is the bare, like, minimum I can scrape by with, you know, and then anything beyond that is sort of, you know, a bonus, you know.
Well, the sooner you can fund too, the more people want to jump on. If they look at it and like, oh man, his first day's gone by and he's a mile away from his goal, I'll check back later, and later never happens. So you want to push early.
Yeah. You got to keep reminding them, you know, at least 1 or 2 posts a day on the social media. You know, hit up the groups, you know, go to Instagram. It's really an online sort of world, you know, you off air, right? We were talking about, you know, your shop and how, you know, Diamond and COVID were basically the final nails in the coffin. So now what you see is a lot of shops actually bringing their business online. They'll have, you know, online eBay stores and, you know, websites and stuff. And a lot of guys are, you know, selling back issues out of the basement. You know what I mean? Like,
you do what you got to do.
And it's an online world. It's not that people don't want comics either. They do, but they want comics that they can enjoy reading, you know, which is why crowdfunding seems to be doing really well these days, because it is an alternative. It's something new and it's different. And it's not sort of the same dribble that you would get from Marvel or DC. At the same time, you know, I just lost my train of thought there.
Okay, kind of what you were just touching
on.
Oh,
yeah. People want back issues. That's what they're hunting for right now, is back issues, right? So you'll see like Copper Age books, Bronze Age books, Silver Age books, you know, just sort of skyrocketing right now because people are scooping them up. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is, you know, we're all getting older and these books are getting older. 2, though, is with the influx of sort of digital media, the physical media is slowly, you know, almost looked as archaic to a lot of people. And where digital media can be changed on the fly, they can edit the book, they can change dialogue. Sure. If you have that sort of raw dog physical copy from back in the 70s, well, no one's going to be able to alter that. You got that, right? So the reason why a lot of people now like buying, you know, games, you know, in physical media, or say movies, you know, because how many times has Star Wars been altered? You know what I mean? Like, but if you have, you know, one of those really old sort of VHS tapes, you might be lucky enough to have the raw dog sort of first, you know what I mean? Unedited George Lucas, right? You know,
yeah.
And comic books is becoming the same way.
Yeah, kind of touching on what you're touching on, what RJ was touching on in the opening about Marvel and DC, and really where the crowdfunding market and the where you can go directly to the customer is really helpful to the consumer, because you can give them content that Marvel and DC is just not going to do. Marvel, and I've been doing this 40 years. When I got in the industry back then, I mean, they made everything from war comics, Western comics, just a little bit of everything. They had licensed comics all the time where they were dealing with people's properties. And then Marvel and DC kind of got away from that, and then just started focusing on one element only, superhero comics. Manga comes along, they're like, oh, hey, everybody likes that manga art, so they start drawing superheroes in manga style. They don't sell it, like, oh, well, nobody likes manga art anymore. It was never about the art. It was that manga gave you different content. And Marvel DC's just not doing that.
Well, manga, is sort of like the Achilles heel of Western comic books right now, that no one really seems to, I shouldn't say no one really seems to talk about it. We've heard, comics versus manga a few times now in the last few months, but it really is sort of true that manga's more hip to the younger crowd, right? Where back in our day, it was like guys like McFarlane and Lee and Lobfeld and, Mark Silvestri and stuff, the Image founders guys who really made comics hip when I was a teen. I was into comic books, maybe a little bit before that, but I remember them rolling on out and, it exploded. The thing is that with comic books right now, as far as the younger generation is concerned, and this goes across the board with pretty much every 20-year-old I've ever talked to, is they don't see comic books as something new, hip, and fresh. They see it as something that their dad reads, and they read manga, you know what I mean? And I had one guy come up to me, where I work. He's like, hey man, I hear you make comic books. And I'm like, yeah. And like, you like comics? And he's like, yeah, brother. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you collect? And he opens up his phone and he shows me his webtoons full of manga. So boom, digital, and boom, manga. You know what I mean?
And the thing about manga is that, it's not just superheroes. I mean, there's mangas about cooking schools. There's mangas about badminton courts. If there's a subject, they're doing a manga on. I had Paul Duder on last night, and he's just now crowdfunding a book, and he's the first one I've met who's crowdfunding out of Japan. He lives there, and I got to have some real first-person experience with what it's like to live in Japan, where the manga scene is so prevalent. He's like, everybody's reading it. There's an old man on the bus reading a manga. There's an old woman on the front of the train reading a manga, and it's all about the subjects that interest them. It's just a delivery form to them. What they're interested in is the story.
Well, I'll tell you what manga reminds me of, right? Manga reminds me of the old school Archie digests, in the fact that, they're different in size than, say, the standard comic. They're a bit smaller. They're easier to sort of carry around. But two is that they're available everywhere, right? As a kid, you would go into the shopping market, right? Or the corner store or wherever, and there'd be Archies for you to buy. I mean, to this day, I can still go to the local supermarket and right by the cash register, by the fucking tabloid magazines, is going to be, the Archie rack, And that's what manga is like, because manga, where comic books aren't available on the spinner racks anymore in stores, other than an LCS, right? Yep. Manga is, manga is available at your Barnes and Noble and at your Chapters and everywhere else, and so it's even more easily accessible, and there's a lot more places to buy it, just like an Archie digest.
Well, their subject matter is so varied too. I mean, it's about everything. It's not just one genre. You got a little bit of everything in manga. And I was carrying manga way early in the 90s because I used to talk every summer to the Summer Lorette University for Youth. At the local university, we'd have kids come in, the gifted and talented kids. And every year they'd always rotate who their speakers were, but I was the only guy they had every year. And I was always the first one they'd always sign up for. Well, usually it was always young boys. Well, then one year I realized, it's always young girls now. What's going on? Of course, they always, girls think a little bit faster, guys. They signed up first. And so it's first come and first serve. So one year I just started listening more than I did talking, and realized, hey, maybe there's more in this manga than what I'm realizing.
Look at my icon, for instance, right? It's cute, it's chibi, it's got that anime manga style. Girls love it. Why? Because it's cute, right? That's what they like. Manga has a very cute aesthetic to it in the way, most of the characters. There's some, darker, serious mangas that aren't as cute and bubbly, right? But a lot of them are, and that's what girls like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I started carrying a lot of manga, and I mean, I would go days where I was the only guy in the store all day because there'd be all these young girls coming in to buy all the manga. Well, then what happened was the mangas got into the bookstores, and the bookstore said, "You give them to us first. Let us sell them for less than what they were retailing. Their cost was less than what our cost was. They were getting them before us by almost 8 weeks, and if they didn't sell them, they got to return them. So all of a sudden, I was getting all this merchandise.
Yeah, that's another big thing.
Every retailer in America, comic book store, got stuck on a couple months worth of merchandise when we realized what was going on, and we all just had to quit selling it because they just told all our customers to go buy it at the book chains. And That was the death of manga and comic book stores. And I've always worked to try to get them back, but it's just here, a title there. Basically, people just come looking for what they can't find at the chain. They just told them to go shop there and buy their books somewhere else other than the comic book stores, who helped build them up. And we were guaranteed sales. We were non-returns. They had a gravy train going with us, and they just bought on the and it put some of those guys out of business, but they just bought on that big initial purchase orders. And look at all the stuff we're going to sell, and just threw us to the wolves. And
you got the books after everybody else already bought it.
2 months worth of books that every retailer in America had those same 2 months worth of manga sitting on their shelves.
Yeah, everybody who wanted one already had it by the time you had them on your shelves.
Well, it's a phenomenon right now. And I remember manga back in the 90s, because I remember like a company called Viz Comics, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And with Viz Comics, you could get like Battle Angel Alita and, stuff like that. There was like Black Magic M66, Appleseed and, all that sort of good stuff. They were like the Akira trade paperbacks, way back in the day. Right. And then even like you look at Antarctic Press, who I get to publish with now. Ben Dunn was like one of the first guys to sort of bring that manga style to America with books like Ninja High School. And then you had Fred Perry with, Gold Digger.
Yep, those are still going.
Yeah, Viz is still around. Yeah, I bought some Viz Battle Angel back issues a few days ago. Some of them were going for a pretty penny because of the movie. Some prices, some shops are overpricing. But I managed to find like a small clump of them for like $3 or $4 each, and I scooped those up.
Yeah, and Larry, you talked about the appeal of the manga characters, and you used your own character here in the avatar.
Sure.
The cuteness appeals to girls. Let's be honest here. This is also your character.
Well, so what you're looking at there is one of the covers that's available on the Kickstarter, and that is done by Matthew Walden. And Matthew Walden is most known for his work on an Antarctic Press book called Punchline, written by Bill Williams. And he also does a lot of work with, some of the other cats. Like, you'll see him do work with Brian Ball of Rags. And of course, he's done work here with NYOBI. This is his second cover actually with us now. And this is a dynamite cover. This is a gorgeous cover. And what really makes this cover pop, I would say, is the colors, especially like, the sort of neon cyberpunk signs in the background. Just look at how the water is picture perfect, and that's done by Dan Olvera. So, this cover, I'm also going to say is has two editions. There's going to be the regular edition and then the hollow foiled edition. So it's going to look really nice as a hollow foil, I think,
Your colors have always popped on this thing. I don't know what it is, but the color palette, the purples and the greens, they glow. they're glowing right off the cover.
Well, Dan Olvera, he's not a newbie in the comic book industry by any means. He's done work for the Grimm Fairy Tales Zenoscope line. He's done work with Action Lab Comics, doing stuff with like Zombie Tramp and Vamp Blade and Puppet Master. So he's got some credits under his belt. He knows what he's doing, right?
So I'm
now. Let me ask Mike though, right? Mike.
Yeah.
Let's take it back. Let's take it back 5 years. Okay. It's 5 years, pre-COVID, you're running your business. Hopefully, let's say your business is doing okay at this time, right? I don't know if it was or wasn't. Let's just pretend you're all right. You're not worried about shutting down at all. And you see a cover like RJ had just shown you, right? In the Diamond magazine. I don't know if you guys would actually flip through a physical magazine or go online for this stuff, but you see the cover, but it's a book that you never seen or never heard of before. Do you take a chance on it and order some copies?
I know the answer to this question, but go for it, Mike.
Yeah. If it's a good looking cover, I've got some customers who will buy a book just because it's got a pretty girl on it. If the art is really nice.
Right. So that's kind of like where I'm going with this next line of questioning, right? Like, does Bad Girl Comics, because this is what we're inspired by, right? Like Bad Girl Comics of the 90s and even like the early 2000s, we're talking like Witchblade, Evangeline, Dark Child, maybe Purgatory, Vampirilla, all that sort of stuff. Lady Death, of course, we got to mention. That's the sort of style of comics that we do, stuff that you would see from Top Cow, back in the day, does that stuff still sell at shops? Because I noticed what happened.
Not like it used to, but it does still sell.
Right. Yeah. Because I think one of the reasons why it doesn't sell as well anymore is because the big two stopped doing it. After the Milo Manera 2014 fiasco with the Wonder Woman in the butt cover, At that
Spider
point,
Woman.
yeah, that's right, the Spider-Woman cover. At that point, what ended up happening was a lot of censorship in art, and the sexy covers just sort of dwindled. I mean, the only person that can really sort of get away with doing them right now for the big two is like a J. Scott Campbell, who even then they sort of, walk him back a bit. Maybe an Art Germ, you know what I mean? But that's, other than a handful of other guys, that's about it. Most of their covers now really, step away from the beautiful looking female form, and they go for what Twitter calls for. And it's a more sort of like, a more realistic form. But what ends up happening is that when you do that, you take away the visual appeal, because we always like, we as human beings just naturally like to look at beautiful people. It's just the truth. You know what I mean? You take that away, you take away part of the fantasy, you take away part of the appeal. And I think that's a big problem right now that we have in comics.
Well, I've always said if there's no fun for the artist, there's no fun for the reader.
Oh, I've said the same thing about the John Romita Jr. action comics that Brian Michael Bendis was drawing or writing rather, because I'd flip through them and I'm like, there's no action in this, and Romita's just like sketching things and just leaving it. And I thought, is he like getting lupus or something? He's not able to draw well anymore. And then I saw this really exciting Catwoman story in the 80th anniversary special, and he was drawing it, and it was awesome. And that's when I figured it out. He's bored.
Yeah,
he's bored writing action comics. He's having to draw newspaper room meeting scenes and people talking and nothing happening. So yeah, he's doing that. But Larry, to your point, you're right. The big two, while there was a lot of Lady Death and Evangeline and Chastity and Dawn, what was writing that out, at the same time, was you had Jim Ballant doing Catwoman for DC.
Yeah, man. Yeah. You had sexy Catwoman covers. You had sexy Black Cat. Back in the days of Amazing Spider-Man, when Jay Scott was around, he was doing like a lot of sexy Mary Jane sort of covers, right? So Marvel and DC both had their crop of bad girls. Harley Quinn, you know what I mean? Poison Ivy, Black Canary, you know what I mean? They've had these sexy characters forever. Marvel's, got Rogue, and they got Jean Grey, and they got Psylocke, and Spider-Woman, and, the list goes on.
And they did the swimsuit.
They back in the day, they would do the swimsuit issues. That's right. They wouldn't be able to do that now. Why? Misogyny. You know what I mean? Like sexes, where are her organs,
They've chased an audience that didn't exist.
And they chased away the one that did.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they didn't expand, they replaced. And that was wrong.
Replaced with what?
Now they want to preach, so you're not reading the right stuff. We'll write the stuff you should be reading instead. And people are like, no, thank you.
And it's fine. Like you talked about, at the beginning of the show, the Tim Drake, going bisexual sort of thing. And I've had people, ask me what I think about it. And my answer is, I don't care. Why? Because I haven't read that trash in forever, and I don't care what Marvel or DC does with their properties anymore, because it's no longer my focus in comics, right? My focus in comics now is what I do in comics, and how we're going to stay.
Disconnect with the fans for sure.
Let them disconnect, because that just makes more room for guys like me,
Yeah,
it does.
I agree. I really see the independent market. If they do not surge during these next 5 years, then they just were not paying attention, because it's the market is ripe for somebody to say and just insert their comics in and take advantage of this ennui that has settled into the fans. Give them something exciting and run with it.
Yeah, let them fail, because if they fail, that means someone else is going to rise up. That's just how it works. Let them fail, man. And while they're failing, we're continuing to pump out some of the best stuff we've ever done. What you're looking at right there, RJ, is a cover by Joel Souza, and he's got a very great animated sort of style. I mean, it's got a cross, I would say, between Bruce Timm from like Batman the Animated Series combined with a little bit of Darwin Cook in there. You know what I mean? Like that's Joel's style right there, and he brought that to NYOBI. And then after he did that cover, we ended up getting him a bunch more work. He ended up working with Tom Hutchinson over at Big Dog Inc. and CB Zane for the Mighty Might. And I saw him do a Red Sonja piece. I don't know if that's an official Red Sonja piece or not. But speaking of CB Zane and the Mighty Might, That's the Mighty Might crossover cover. And what a smash out success that comic was. The Mighty Might did over 630 backers, you know. And that was like, you know, her first sort of debut issue. So hats off to CB Zane. And this is actually a J. Scott Campbell homage cover, by the way, as well. This is a cover swipe of Gen 13 Supergirl #2, where Caitlin Fairchild and Supergirl are sort of like, you know, staring each other down kind of thing, you know.
I remember that one. You do have a lot of multiple covers now. As a crowdfunder, and especially as a crowdfunder who's working in this particular genre of storytelling, do you find that the multiple covers are a necessity? Because, you know, if we go back to what a lot of crowdfunders were saying, and, you know, the Comicsgate people especially, they're saying that, you know, what really killed Marvel and DC, and Michael, you can chime in on this one here, was the variant cover.
Not the variant cover. The way you had to get variant covers
exactly.
was the problem, right?
The
variant wasn't the issue. But what was the issue was you have to order 50 of this cover to get the one cool cover you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With crowdfunding, it doesn't quite work that way, right? So with crowdfunding, you don't have to order a certain amount of covers to get one of our variants. You know, that's not how it works. You might pay an extra $5 or $10 for something really, really cool, but you don't have to order a bunch of stuff you don't want to get it. And that's what killed it. It wasn't variants themselves. It was how you got them, right? Because if you look at DC, you know, DC would put out two covers. They had cover A and cover B, and they were both the same price, right? So that gave a customer options. I would go in and I would look at Catwoman, and I would see the, you know, Jolie cover, and like fucking pass by that and go straight for the Art Germ variant and grab it. You know what I mean? And the store didn't have to order 100 copies for it. It was just cover B, you know. Dynamite Comics does the same thing. Dynamite Comics has probably about 6 or 7 different Red Sonja covers for every issue. And while some of them might be, you know, you have to order X amount, most of them aren't. You know what I mean? Yeah, and people like to have options. You know, if I have like 8 variant covers, you know, someone may not like the Matthew Walden cover. Maybe this one's a little bit too sexy for them. But maybe they like the Justin Hunt cover down there a little better, you know, and they want to bring that one home. And that could be the difference maker, someone buying my comic or not. Because a lot of times we base our buys, especially if you're walking in by the shelf or scrolling through a Kickstarter, on the art and imagery you see. And if you don't like the imagery, you're not going to buy. But if you give them options and they scroll through, well, I don't like that one, or I don't like that one. But then they get to the third one, scroll down one more. They get to the next one, let's say here, and it's Luigi Terrell from Rags, you know? And they're like, oh, man, I recognize that. That's Adam Hughes' Catwoman 51 homage. I want to get that one because that one's going to look really sleek and sexy as a holofoil, and it's going to be a holofoil. Maybe they decide to back the book then, you know?
You know what I like about crowdfunding over the mainstream books, and it's not anything to do with the story or even the art, but it is to do with the art. But if there's a really cool cover, there's a 8 out of 10 chance that there's a tier that you can get just that cover as a print add-on, because they're just really cool posters a lot of the time, and you can hang it on your wall afterwards instead of just filing it in your white box.
The idea about us and the different covers is, you know, we sort of cater to a couple different markets, right? There's the people who want to read the book, you know, and just check it out, which, you know, they can buy digitally, or they can buy like cover A or B. You know, those are our sort of entry buy-ins for physicals, right? You know, $15 for a really nice high quality book with over 35 pages of story in it. It's about the size of a Marvel annual, like old school Marvel annual, you know. Then you get into these, you know, these sleeker variants, and, you know, the variants really sort of appeal to the collector. You know what I mean? The guy who's going to take this cover is probably going to guy that's going to get it slabbed at CGC and hope he gets a 9.8. You know, those are the types of guys that would come for this sort of stuff. And I'll tell you, we've had it done. You know, last year we had the Paul Green cover for Birthright #2, which is an add-on here, by the way. And then people were flipping them and successfully selling them for $150 a pop. And I was selling them for 22.
You should have created a new idea and gone to eBay.
I've sold on eBay. I outflip Flipper. You know, when that happened, I said, "Oh, you want to sell my books for $150? Okay, I'll go on here and I'll undercut you by half. I'll put the same book up for $75." Sold everything I had, and this guy couldn't sell his book for the life of him. He had to drop his price. You know.
Sure, but you had the supply, so You're able to,
That's right,
supply and
brother.
demand. That's how that economic thing works. I was told in high school. Michael, what's the largest order that was ever demanded of a retailer, saying you have to buy this many to get this cover? And which is the largest that you actually thought was a deal you wanted to follow through on?
I'll tell you, I've seen them in the hundreds. I've seen them in the thousands.
Yeah, it's been in the thousands. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I remember when Marvel was doing a thing for some holograms on a whole bunch of, you had to buy like 2 times what you normally sold of all your titles. Then you could buy even, all these other covers that you couldn't get any other way. I never even got to the point to see that they were holograms. I was like, once I saw the multiples, that's it. I don't even need to look any further. I was done. And then I found out later, so that was all those covers that they were going to do for the whole month. And I had just passed on it all without even realizing I was doing it, because once I just saw those ratios, I was just forget it. And so many other retailers got burned on it so bad, I was able to buy those books that I wanted, that I passed on, at wholesale, less than what I could have bought them from Marvel the first time through. And I didn't have to buy all the junk. And so I came out smelling like a rose, because I had every book that I wanted for my customers, and I didn't have to buy any of the extra stuff. And I mean, there were people just swimming in those Marvel comics. It just destroyed so many retailers around the country. It really did.
Yeah.
And I don't, when I see those incentive levels, if I qualify, I'll take it. But if I don't qualify, I don't care if it's one more book, I'm not going to pop. I will not. I refuse to reward them by ordering extra. It just aggravates me. And, they've destroyed the completist collector. There's a certain OCD to comic collectors. You got to have them all. And they've destroyed that. You can't do that anymore. It's impossible to be a completist and collect comics anymore. So they've destroyed a whole element of the hobby. And that was a pretty big segment of the collectors that kept these things going for so long. These guys were going to be there every month, couldn't miss an issue. Because I couldn't tell you how many times people said, I dropped off Daredevil the month before Frank Miller started on it. So everybody just hang on to it forever. Like, I got all these, got to keep getting them. But then all of a sudden now you got all these covers you can't get. Like, makes it real easy to walk away. First time you get frustrated, that's it. I'm done.
Yeah, I've walked away from so many titles. In fact, There's nothing. I don't feel like I'm missing anything. Since they rebooted. Yeah.
Used to, if you could count, you can collect. Now you got to get a book. Okay, which volume? Where does this go through? What's the actual numbering? I mean, when you got to have a roadmap, it's a roadblock. And they have just chased the collectors away. The core of their business. They stopped making all the diversity of comics and started just making nothing but superheroes and nothing but superheroes. And then now they say, okay, well, now we want to start preaching to you. We're going to have all these liberal superheroes, or they're going to be transsexual, gay, or whatever. Well, that's, maybe 3 to 7% of my customer base. I'm like, what about my other 93% of my customers? Aren't you going to make any books for them anymore? And they're just like, forget it, I'm out, I'm done. And I've been seeing, them hemorrhaging customers like I've never seen before. And the way they cut back on all their selections there in the last year since the pandemic hit. I mean, I wrote an article that said, hey, look, this is an opportunity. Well, to that same day, on the same place my article was published on, ICV2, is a thing from Steve Jeppy, announcement, hey, we're shutting it all down. And, sports cards exploded.
And he's right.
In the comics, we just missed the boat.
He's right on everything he said. And it's a sad state of affairs, because it almost looks like the death of comics is sort of happening. When you hear stories just like this man tells you, what we got to do is work on making comic books cool again. But in order to do that, we're not going to be able to rely on Marvel and DC to pull that weight anymore. And so it's going to have to be smaller companies that sort of step up and give the customers what they want, but the customers are also going to have to come in and buy. Antarctic Press, for example, is doing a really great job with sort of rebranding themselves lately. They do Punchline, they do Patriotica, they put out Common America, they put out Rags, they're going to put out NYOBI, right? They still have a couple like their long-standing titles ongoing, like Ninja High School. I think Gold Digger's coming to an end at issue 300, but what a long run that had, And they're always looking at new product. Like, to me, Antarctic Press almost seems like the new version of Image now, where if you're a new and up and coming creator, maybe you want to get a shot, at being on the shelf for as long as the shelf is going to last. Who knows? With the way things work with Diamond and stuff now. But I view myself as sort of like the very last of the old school sort of comic book creator crew, who hasn't fallen into putting out a book based on agenda, but puts out a book just based on what they think is fucking badass. Yeah,
I can see DC and Marvel right now. I know I can see the shelf space shrinking, but at the same time, I know that DC was supposed to like shrink their titles down, and now they've got 53 Bat titles that are being
That's the only thing they have
solicited.
to tell us.
Well, you know, and to speak about Batman and go off topic here for a second, but you know, there's a new thing out now, not even necessarily new, but it's called Substack, right? And so what Substack has done is it's almost like WCW rating the WWE of all their talent and giving them big money. Substack has now taken Scott Snyder, James Tynion IV. They got Scotty Young, you know. They got a couple other big names that have gone over and signed, you know, sort of like big money contracts to do creator-owned work on a digital platform for a subscription fee, much like the way that Patreon works. And so that's got the industry sort of rumbling, you know, because that means they just lost, Marvel and DC just lost the people that took care of their biggest properties, which is fucking Batman and Spider-Man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see
that.
that.
Another scary thing that's going on right now, too, is with Marvel switching over to Penguin Random House. Now, I will say that so far my dealings with Penguin Random House have been great. Haven't gotten any shipments from them yet, so I don't know what the quality is going to be like. I don't know if they're up to the demands of the collectors wanting books that don't look like they've been damaged. But the thing about it, when you're going through Penguin Random House, that's getting Marvel into all the bookstores in America. So it's like there's, you know, they know the comic book industry. I don't know how much we can count on that. So let's just get all the other book retailers, all the regular traditional bookstores carrying our product now. Let's get available through PRH.
But I did not know that was a side effect.
That should have been like that all along, though. You know, that's why comic book sales have dwindled over the years, is because the accessibility of them. You know, I was talking to a guy yesterday, and I had posted where someone had, you know, put up my issue of Exciting Comics 17 on eBay for pre-order. I'm like, why in the hell would anyone pre-order this comic through eBay and pay a shipping fee when they could just go to the local shop and get it? Well, I was immediately corrected on that. You know, Tom Hutchinson messages me, well, my local comic shop's at least an hour away.
I'm in the same spot here because
and so like you have to drive an hour to get comics, you know, or if you could go to the local 7-Eleven and there's a rack of them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
see,
I needed supplies today and I couldn't find any.
It's like this last year. I have no regrets about closing my two locations. The product from Marvel DC and the other publishers, it wasn't there to maintain 5,500 square foot of retail space when everybody started putting all the titles on hiatus. You know, and then my customers saw a lot of people are losing their jobs. You know, while incomes are questionable. So you know, right now it's just not there to support a comic book store. You know, unless you are like a general bookstore carrying all these other lines. So I think Marvel's looking at that saying, hey, this is going to be where the future of the industry is. We got in there now. I will say that in my 40 years, I've had the chains come after me over and over again. When I first opened up, I carried paperback books. I carried calendars. I carried a lot of other merchandise. The chains took all those away, but they could never take the comics away because the comic requires expertise about your local customer base. What sells in one store does not sell in the other. My two stores were like 15-minute drive apart, separated by a river. Completely two different clienteles. I mean, one store, Marvel sold better than the other, DC sold better than the other. Then DC did the revamp, and all of a sudden, it flipped. All of a sudden, one store, you know, couldn't sell, DC could, and then another one, everybody left. You know, either people were ready to try it at the other store, or they gave up on it at the other store. I mean, so my two stores just being a short distance apart, completely different demographics, and you have to order for what you know you can sell when you're buying on a non-returnable basis. Now,
because what happens is they all end up in the dollar bin if you don't sell them, you know.
Yeah, and the whole thing, because we don't get to return them. I mean, they're ours forever if we over order. Same time, if you don't order enough, that missed sale, that's forever too. There was this chain that was down here for a while. I can't even remember the name of them now, but it was a real big chain, and they had a deal from Marvel and those guys where they were getting returnability, and so they were getting exclusive comics and this and that. And they were, a good competitor there for a while, but then all of a sudden they got put on the same terms as I was, out of business, bankrupt within months. I mean, they could not compete on the same terms because. Marvel realized, hey, we're not making any money on these guys. Now they tried to come after me before, on the similar terms, and backed off on it. At one point, I had, I think it was Hastings. I don't remember if that's right or not.
They went out of business. Yeah, I remember Hastings.
Yeah, and I had every store manager in a 50-mile radius called me up, and one of them was so arrogant. He said, "This is an exact quote." He said, "Hey, I was driving by your store the other day, saw a lot of cars out front, and I was thinking those cars should be in front of my store. So why don't you come on down and teach us how to retail comics?" Either he thought I was an idiot or he was an idiot or both. I mean, here, I don't deserve my customer. Why don't you take them away? Let me show you how. That's not going to
Yeah,
happen.
yeah.
But they were
Some
all
people
calling
say
it
it's
wasn't
not
gonna
a.
happen.
Well, some
So
people
they
say it's
tried
not
to
a
get the colors,
competitive
but they all just
market.
lost their shirts. So it's
But
a real
most
tough thing.
but it most absolutely is a competitive market, though. Why would you tell your competitor how to outsell you and how to steal away your people?
That you won't.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You know what I mean? You know what you're looking at here, RJ. The last two covers you sort of scrolled by. These are unfinished pieces that are like well within the works. I can get them any day now, like the color version. So that's done by Courtney Rose Dameron, who's just a gorgeous lady, great pinup artist. And the one before that was done by Lady Death's very own Chris Enot, and that's in the process of being colored as we speak. So once I have the final versions of these two, they'll be updated. But we had to launch before they were done. We just couldn't wait any longer. You know, we just had to get rolling on with summer and, you know, get in before.
I'll tell you, Larry, I'm a pencils guy. I see something like this, like Ryan Wynn did a headshot for me of a Batgirl. It was the Barbara Gordon, almost like the 66 series Batgirl. And he sent me a scan of it. He says, I haven't done the inks to it yet, but here's the pencils. I'm like, could you just like not and just leave it? It's gorgeous as it is. And then I saw the inked one. I was like, it's still gorgeous, but it looks different. He's like, yeah, when you said you liked the pencil so much, I actually put it aside and redrew it and inked it, and I'm sending you both of them.
Yeah,
So like,
yeah. I mean, this is gorgeous, but the problem is that the resolution and sort of like the view we got on this doesn't really do this image really any justice. But I think once this is fully colored, Chris Enot, he's a great artist. He's, like I said, Lady Death is, Coffin Comics, right? He's our ringer this time around, and just wait till this is colored, man. This is this will probably be the hit cover, but no one really knows it yet because they scroll by it, they see just the pencil, so they're like, I don't know how that's gonna finish, right? That's a splash page from the book. So Juan Antonio does the interiors, Dan again doing the colors, and there's a few sample pages that we got in here. I'll probably update with a couple more here in the next couple of days, but we don't want to give away too much, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, you want people to get hooked, and then there's a little girl with a teddy bear and something that's going to kill them all. Is that a save kid, or is the kid the monster?
That's a well-armed drone that's actually analyzing NYOBI right now.
Now, you've been doing NYOBI for several years now.
Yeah, about 7.
Independently. 7 years. That's an eternity in comics.
Yeah, it feels like it. But I like the way that Juan breaks the panels, and I like the way that Dan's made the colors pop. I mean, you're taking a red background and you're trying to make that work, and he's made it work. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it definitely does work.
And there's Avani making her long-awaited return. Not too happy with NYOBI right now,
So I'm just kind of scrolling through some of the work on here. So this is what are these? Are these prints, trading cards?
No, that's a cover set.
Oh, okay.
So what you're looking at now is add-ons.
Gotcha.
So I mean, that's the RB White combo pack. So you get his latest cover, and then you get his Birthright covers, including the naughty variant that you see there, which is kind of covered up. But yeah.
Thank you.
Oh my cuteness.
Are you playing with the soundboard again?
Well, not too much. There is a couple original art here. So that's like sort of like the first sketch that RB did of his cover. And I'm like, okay, let's change it around a bit. Like, let's get rid of that strap and let's give her a bra instead. Because I just didn't like the way this looked. And, he went ahead and drew a second one and we liked it. So that's the one that got inked, which you'll see down underneath here. And so both of these versions are available for sale. Obviously, there's only one of each. So,
Sure.
And we're doing a third printing of the original NYOBI #1, like the original 2015, black and white issue as an add-on. Because I always get people like, how can I get the very first one? Well, we've been sold out of the first one for years, right? But we're doing a third printing. So for people that want to read it and have one in their hands, and then that will be the cover there. That's from the original artist who did the first cover back in the day, Andre Boulard. Then we have Birthright combo pack. So no one's ever read NYOBI Birthright to be able to order, the 2-part mini series, combo pack. There's also the Steph Wilson combo pack. All these are in limited amounts. They're basically based on what I have in this box down here. You know what I mean? So
I've seen
you
this
know.
Steph Wilson guy showing up on a lot of stuff. His
Oh yeah,
style
he's
is
the hardest working man in comics, man. There's the Matthew Walden variant right there that you're showing. I got, one right here in my hand. I just listed this as an add-on about 15 minutes before I came on the air with you. So this is Matthew Walden's, glorious cover from NYOBI. And, if no one's ever seen NYOBI before, maybe they're seeing this for the very first time. We put out a nice looking comic, man. And, we do a really nice job
thick too.
On the art. Yeah, well, it's a great, thick sort of cardstock and paper stock. You know what I mean? It's printed by Comics Wellspring, and they do a fantastic job with this, So if this doesn't remind you of stuff from, back in the, early days of Bad Girl Comics, then we failed you. If it doesn't remind you a little bit of X-Men, then we failed you. You know what I mean?
Well, they're not eating dinner, so it can't be an X-Men book, Larry. That's all the X-Men do is eat dinner.
But that's the common vibe I get when people read it. They say to me, and I take this as a compliment, that this feels like old school X-Men. I'm like, great, because that's exactly what we want it to feel like. You know what I mean? Because that's what I grew up reading,
Yeah. Now, this has always been my favorite cover. And I know it's not even NYOBI, but
that's the cover that went for. That was the cover that was going for $150 on eBay.
Oh man,
that is done by Paul Green, who's got a very style that might remind you, say, of a one J. Scott Campbell. In fact, they get confused all the time.
I can
this
see why
cover right here.
Is that available as a print?
Not as a print. We had them as postcards before, but there are 50 of these available on the latest Kickstarter. So if you missed out last time and you don't want to pay $150 on eBay for one of these, we're selling them for $40 right now on the Kickstarter. So it's your last chance to grab it. If you're a flipper, grab it now and flip it now. You know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah, and kind of like what I tweeted to you when you put that when you put that Matthew Walden cover up there with the motorcycle. All I replied back was 26 by 30. That's what we need
it's
that
hard
to be.
To see, but I got a poster of that cover right there on that door. Like if I was to turn the camera on, you could see it. But I'm going to do the same with the Matthew Walden one. I mean, these are just things I made for my personal self. I never sold it or anything.
So Michael, let me ask you this now. Given the experience that you've had in comics industry, and COVID and Diamond obviously contributed to the whole shutting it down. If somebody came to you and said, I'm thinking about opening a comic store today. I want to jump into this market. I want to open up a brick and mortar. I want to sell some comics. What would be your advice to them for survival, if that's even possible?
Wait.
Wait for what though? Wait for everything to crumble apart, or wait to see
your inventory. Get ready. At some point, right? The market on real estate's is eventually all these business locations are sitting empty. Eventually, people will start going down. Right now, they're trying to hold on to try to get the rates they were getting before, and eventually they're going to get hungry enough. You got to find people who are willing to work, and everybody wants $17 an hour. Everybody wants to be like a CEO, get those kind of wages to do flipping hamburgers type of job. So right now it's hard to find help. Retail spaces are still expensive, to find and get. And, the market is pretty unhealthy. We don't know what's going to happen with Diamond once they lose Marvel. The discount, if you try to buy Marvel from Diamond, you're dropping about 20 points. And I don't think you can stay in business very long losing that much of a discount. So if you just try to just do with them. And so you're going to have to deal with 3 distributors. So it's a pretty shaky time in the industry right now. I remember when I first got ready to open up my first store. I was straight out of high school, and we went from Nixon to Gerald Ford to Jimmy Carter. And I was wanting to open a store right away, but I was like, it just isn't the time. And I just kept waiting and kept waiting. Then Reagan got in there, and I was like, I still wasn't sure. But after the first couple of years of Reagan, I saw the economy start to turn around, opportunities for business turn around, the laws for businesses turn around. I thought, okay, now's the time. And I opened up, and I mean, it was steady growth until Bill Clinton got in office, and then after that, it started doing the zigzag on the sales chart. But up until that point, it was a steady growth. And so you got to pick your times and pick your targets, because you're probably going to take one shot at it. You want to take your best shot. And right now, I would advise anybody open up a business in the environment that we got right now, especially in the comic book industry, with as shaky as Marvel DC is performance right now. Just like I'm kind of wondering if they're just trying to run a lot of stores out of business. and just wipe out the retail market. So we got to go digital right now. Look, there's no stores left. I mean, you just they're not supporting their brick and mortar stores. They really are.
And according to the numbers I saw just a couple of weeks ago, there's a 20% increase in stores.
Oh yeah, I know.
Since last
They're
year.
lying. I mean, the pull-in numbers like, okay, let's add manga to it. That's never been added to it before. Let's add the Scholastic numbers. That's never been added to it before. And it's only coming up with a 20% increase when they're pulling all these other numbers.
No, I'm saying they're coming up with a 20% increase in stores, not the sales, but actual open accounts. And I'm like, well, I know that's not necessarily brick and mortars, that's diamond accounts.
Well, look, I mean, if you're just a straight out comic book store and that's all you do is like new issues and back issues and you got nothing else, you're probably not going to make it these days, right? Your store's got to have the Funko Pops, you got to have the magic cards, you got to have the board games, you got to have the statues, you got to have the manga, you got to have the D&D books, you have to have events every week. That's what our store does, and that's how they manage to stay alive. If they just had to rely on comics, game over, man. You know what I mean?
Market that'll support those things. Like I tried Funko Pops, couldn't sell them, couldn't give them away. Oh, there was only that one that was collectible that everybody would want. Statues, same thing. I just did some of those things. I just had to do at special orders only because my local market didn't support me just to stock them. People come in, I want that. You got to have the market for it, and and markets will be different. It depends on where you're going to open up. I mean, if you're near a college that's thriving, you could probably do well and carry a bigger variety. The gaming stuff would be a big help to you. I've seen a lot of stores open up, comic book stores close to college, and they just become a gaming store. They just say, "Oh, heck with it, comics. We're just ditching. We don't even want to fool with them anymore. We're making all our money on gaming." So you got to find where your niche is, and what your clientele is like.
Well, don't look at it like I would say this, and I never owned a comic book store before, but I would say, to people that were looking up to do that sort of business is don't just think of comics, think of it as a geek store. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've carried it all over the years. I mean, I've tried it all one time or another, and you got to dump what doesn't work and stick with what does. Because if you tie up all your money in dead inventory, you won't be around too long.
We have some sexy peeps in the chat here tonight, by the way. We have Bianca Zombie who stopped by. He was the first to arrive, last to survive. Jay Lee is here. Jay Lee. We have Lola Meets. Hey RJ, big heart face and emojis there. We have Lorenzo Slee Stack. We have Gabriel Hernandez who says, good evening, fellow kids. Hello. Jay Lee says, NYOBI, congrats on the new book. Looks great. He's got to head back to work. And we have Robert Roberts, says CEO making $17 an hour. It sucks when you employees want more than a box of ramen at payday. Well, look, here's the thing. Some of these companies probably could afford to pay their company, their employees more. If you're a McDonald's, Coca-Cola, you're a big corporation, yeah, you can probably shell out a few more bucks for your dudes. When you're a struggling business, just upstart, you can't afford to pay premium wage, especially when you're paying rent and costs of product and you're barely getting by.
The owner's the last guy in line, and sometimes there's nothing left by the time it gets to you. I can tell you how many times I went where I didn't pay myself. I made my payroll every time, but then a lot of times there was just nothing left for me. And, I would love to pay my employees a lot of money, but like I always kept trying to tell them, help me make more money, then I'll be able to pay you more. But the money's got to be there first. You can't just pull it out of thin air, And I had one customer one time who quit shopping with me because he was convinced that I was some sort of rich robber baron and I was making all this money. And he wrote me a real nasty email. I let my employees read that, about how he was talking about how I was taking advantage of them and this and that. They were all angry at him by the time they finished. What's he talking about? He's just making stuff up. So people get this impression that all businesses are just raking it in. We wish it was true. I mean, if there was more money there, there'd be more money to go around. But one thing people forget about minimum wage, that was never intended to be a living wage. That's an entry level wage. And if you get that too high, people who are getting fresh out of college or people who don't have the skills yet, they won't be able to find a way into the marketplace to develop that resume and develop the work skills. And, I'll tell you what, whenever I'd hire people in, maybe at a lower wage, of course, I never paid minimum wage. I always paid above it. I always paid above the scale for the rest of the country. For what comic book stores, I was always on top of the scale on that. But as soon as I found a good worker, man, I'd bump them up fast. And because I didn't like to lose good workers, I would make sure I always kept them. And I'd be rewarded if they worked harder. Then you get the people who come in, well, I'll start working when you start paying me more. It doesn't work that way. So you got to have people willing to work, and
I get it.
Make you money, they have money too.
Because the cost of living is so much more these days. The cost of food is up. The cost of gas is up.
Well, and whenever you raise the minimum wage, guess what? The people who sell that stuff and have to pay that wage are going to raise the price of everything.
When I hit the workforce, minimum wage was $1.60 an hour. I was making the big bucks of $1.70 an hour because I was like the hardest worker, and I started out in printing, and I was within just a few years I was a journeyman printer, and then after that I went to printing management. But because I was harder working than anybody else. But I'll tell you what, I was making $1.70 an hour, and that 10 cents an hour actually was a big deal back then in the early 70s, because that's another $4 a week. Back then, that was a tank of gas and a weekend's worth of entertainment. As the minimum wage and all the wages keep going up, so does everything else, and they're not commensurate. I mean, the cost of everything seems to go faster than the wages do.
Larry, I'm seeing two J. I'm seeing a mix up here now. I'm seeing a J. Scott Campbell and a
Milo Manera.
Milo Manera combo here.
Yeah, so what that is, that's a promotional trading card that everyone's going to get for free, regardless of where we end up. As long as we're funded, everyone gets that for free. That's a promotional card with Scorpiana 3 Revelations that's actually ongoing on Kickstarter right now. So everyone should go check that out as well. And so, yeah, that's, part done. That art is, two pieces of art sort of combined into one there. NYOBI is drawn by Fern Cord, who does Max DeVille's Mary Machine Gun.
Yeah, I know Fern.
Yeah. And then there is CB Zane Scorpiana, which was drawn and colored by CB Zane. And so that's available on both campaigns. Everyone's just going to get that. There is a link to his campaign right underneath the card. People can, click on that and check it out.
You're cross-promoting. I like it.
Yeah, well, they're doing the same for me. So it's, it's a win-win, right?
Yeah.
Going back to the manga chibi sort of stuff, we got chibi stickers, this was the interesting thing of, when I was doing cons was, sometimes the ladies will walk by or the kids will walk by, and, NYOBI is meant for, a little bit of an older reader than, say, a 12-year-old girl, right? But they would see the chibi prints or the chibi buttons or, that sort of stuff. And they would want that stuff. So at least there was something for everybody,
You'd have something to sell them even if they couldn't read the book.
Yeah. They just like the image,
Well, you got 2 chibi stickers this time around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm liking it. And this is...
That's going to be a coaster.
You're hitting the sticker mule people, aren't you?
Well, actually, Comics Wellspring is doing it all. So
they're doing all of it.
Yeah, so Comics Wellspring has really opened up into what they can provide to the crowdfunding. So not only are they doing comics, now they're doing holofoils, now they're doing coasters, stickers, bookmarks, trading cards, right? So you can almost prints, you can pretty much get all your tchotchkes in one place. And then the cool thing about it is, and this isn't the shill for them too much, I mean, because it's about, but I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but I will say that if you put their little ad at the bottom of your Kickstarter, they give you a flat out 15% off everything.
Whoa, that's a deal.
Yeah, especially when you're in Canada and you're already paying more for things because of the exchange rate. Yeah. It's a hell of a deal, right? So we do everything through Comics Wellspring. They've been great to us. We've used them 3 separate occasions. I don't see us using anyone else in the future, especially if they're going to give me 15% off everything.
Yeah. Now, Michael, you're in the position now where I get your customers, they still get a previews magazine to know what's coming out. I mean,
check this out. You keep talking for a second.
Yeah, because I'll send out that previews. They'll give me all the free copies on one of the previews. I send them out. DC is a little bit stingy. Actually, they didn't even make a magazine for a while, and so now the DC's coming out, and so I'll send them as many as they'll send. I'll send them out to my customers there, and I'll just kind of break it down by who likes Marvel and who likes DC. And the big
no one's ever seen a previews comic book before. This is what it is. This is basically like the Sears catalog for comic book shops. Okay. And in the preview magazine, of course, you can order a variety of things from a variety of publishers. But you know what?
You have a post-it note mark on that page? Come on.
No, I don't. But I know where it is. I've opened it up so many times. And it's all alphabetical order too. So it's going to be easy to find. But yeah, so no one.
I've run full page ads and previews, and it's not quite as doesn't sell out as many as it used to, but it's still a good source to get your word out there.
There he is, first appearance of NYOBI in a previews comic and a previews magazine.
Right there, Antarctic Press, Exciting Comics 17. This is for this month too, so if you order it now, you'll get them in October. And so there's the order code. I am a number now, RJ. My number is AUG211490. That, of course, artwork, by the way, on that cover is done by Randy Green, who used to draw for Witchblade after Michael Turner did.
Yeah, give retailers that code. They can order directly from Diamond with it.
That's it. So let me ask you now, right? You can grab me off the big screen there,
Yep,
RJ.
I'm taking it. I got it.
But let me ask the, the comic shop owner, right? You get a magazine like this. Now, when you get these, right, do you actually flip through these to make your orders, or are you doing them on an online thing?
I used to go through that to make my orders. Now that I'm just doing mail orders, I don't have to.
Let's say
guess
you
what
still had a
people want.
physical shop, right? I'm
Yeah,
talking about
back
from a
with
physical
stores,
shop
I'd go through every page of that, and the quality.
So
of
like
art,
literally the physical book though, like you would flip through and go, okay, I want this, and then you would make a note or whatever, right? And then
Well,
you
you've
would
got
make a
a
note
shorter
of
form
how many
catalog
copies.
retailers, to order from. You will have lines. You can just kind of write what numbers you want on that, and then later you can fill in your orders online with them. But so they'll give you like a little a shorter form book, which is nothing but the lines and the space to write your numbers out, which matches up with that. It goes by page, what items are on what page. So you go through the big book, and then you keep that other book and you just kind of write your notes on as you develop your catalog through the month.
So let's say you still have
if I
your
want to
shop.
get this, how much is it? Well, that shorter book, you can look at it and say, okay, you know what your cost is, so you can tell them what their cost will be. Because not
You
everything
got your
has a proper
shop.
catalog.
This is a hypothetical situation. Let's say your shop is still open. You have this magazine in your hand. You flip by this. It's from Antarctic Press. Now, I don't know how well Antarctic Press books were selling in your shop, but do you order this? You know what I mean?
I might give them
What's
one
the-
or two
what's
copy try. Yeah, just because of the cover art. Because I do have a couple people who will buy for just the cover art. If it's got a pretty girl, they'll buy it. Not as many as I had back in the 90s, but I still got a couple.
Yeah, and right now you're in a position where what you order is what your customers say they want, which is kind of where you were in the last years of the shop too. I remember you were saying that what would drive what you ordered was if people asked for it. If you saw something in the book and nobody's been asking for it.
Always the case, but then I'd also have to gamble on what did I think people were looking for. I will say too though that if I have nobody expressing interest in something, I might look at it and say, man, that looks great, but I don't have one person expressing interest. Okay, so a multiple zero is still zero. It's
so I mean, like you would have to look at it. You would have to look at it from the point of like how many people are actually coming in, wanting it in their poll list, and then you have to decide how many you want for the shelf, right?
Right. And so I'm saying that's the bad thing a retailer has to do is you have to predict 2 months in advance what people will want before they even have any idea it's being made. And like I say, if you don't order it, that's missed sales. That's forever. But if you order too many, it's going to be your copy forever.
And it's interesting because, with that number 17, I've already seen what number 20 looks like. It doesn't hit the preview magazine until like February. That's how far advanced these things are being made and being done. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So Mike, what's the math
retailers
on something?
are still ordering 2 months in advance of that. So
yeah. So what's the math on something like this for your your guesstimations? If 5 people came into your store and said, hey, I want a copy of this exciting comics number 17. If 5 people say they want it, how many copies does that translate into you ordering for the store?
Is there a minimum amount you have to order?
No, you just order 1 copy. I might double it up though. I mean, if I have 5 people, that'd be pretty strong interest. So I might just double that. I don't know if I'd go triple. Antarctic never was one that would go triple numbers, but different publishers, like if I have 5 people want a Marvel, I might go quadruple that. A smaller publisher, I might just go 1 or 2. Antarctic's not what I'd call a smaller publisher. They've been around for a while, so they've got a decent following. So it's going to be a sliding formula based on who the publisher is and just how good the art is and how enthusiastic people are. And then also, too, it depends on which customers of mine are asking. Because there's some customers have a taste that's more in line with the general audiences. And then there's some other customers, they're going to be the only ones who want that. So, don't do a multiple. That's the guy who's wanting it.
Okay, because I didn't know if there was a situation where you try to calculate if 5 people are telling you they want it, then there's really 15 people who do want it, and 10 of them haven't expressed specifically to you that they want it, but
that
they
can
want.
Be the case. Yeah, like I said, there's no just hard concrete formula. It's based on a lot of factors: the publisher, who the customers are, the content. There's just a lot of varieties there. But it could be I could come up with that formula depending on what it was.
So the real lesson here is, folks,
you polish it up real bright. You try to look into it, and predict what people want in the future. That's the toughest part of the job.
Yeah, that's rolling the dice.
You do well.
I mean, I roll the dice the same way he does, though, in the sense of like I have to figure out what I think I can successfully do on this crowdfunding campaign and how many people I guesstimate might come and back it. And when I, say commission an artist to do a piece for me, I have to think about, does this artist have an appeal? Will this artist share it out? Does this artist have a built-in fan base? How many of those people might come over from that artist's Facebook page over to my Kickstarter to sort of check this out? It's all a roll of the dice, man.
Now, I will say one thing. This holds true for Marvel, DC, any publisher. You'll see this variant that's hard to get, not a lot of copies of it, and it's just stunning. And you're like, why isn't that the main cover?
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah. The real lesson here is,
You
folks,
sell
if you
so
want
much
a
more of that
comic,
main cover.
Well, look, I remember when I got back into comics, right? Like I was in it like in the late 80s, early 90s. And then in the 2000s, I sort of dropped out. But then I got back into it around 2008. I walked into the comic shop to play Magic the Gathering. And as I walk by the shop, I see New Mutants #1, like volume 3. And it had like this just awesome cover of Magic on it, right? I'm like, okay, you know, I was a big New Mutants guy from back in the day. I'll buy this. I'll check it out, you know. And then I ended up buying like a few other books while I was there. And then next thing you know, bam, I'm back in the fucking comics, right? But this was like when variants were coming out by the droves, you know. And I was like very much a J. Scott Campbell guy. And so my shop knew if a J. Scott Campbell variant came out, they would talk to me to see if I wanted it. You know what I mean?
Right.
They would come to me first, you know, or they would just put it in my box. And if I wanted, I could have the choice to say yes or no. And if I didn't want it, it would go to someone else. But I had to stop, man, because the problem is that most of his covers were variants. And you're starting to look at $20 a pop, $40 a pop, $100 a pop, maybe, for some of these variants. I was like, fuck, I can't do that anymore, man. You know, just couldn't, you know.
But right there, you just described why chain stores will never take complete control of the comic industry, at least not effectively, because they don't have the knowledge of the customer's taste, like what you were just about. They knew that you liked J. Scott Campbell, so they would try to carry more J. Scott Campbell for you, where a chain store, they're going to try to order the same thing in every location. And Archie doesn't sell the same in one town as it does in another. X-Men doesn't sell the same as it does in one town to another. And the J. Scott Campbell fans aren't the same in every town. So, you know, that's where the expertise of knowing your local customer base, chains can't do that. They don't have the employees to do that.
Yeah, you know, and every time I talk to a comic shop owner, it's always different. Like you said, every shop is different. Every one of you guys, you know, you have a sort of different tale to tell. You know what I mean about
we've got
how
clientele base. You know, we're all adjusting to what our local market does and what they want, and it's our job to take care of that. And that's going to be different all around the country. Like I say, my Little Rock store sold different stuff than my North Little Rock store, and so I ordered differently for the two different locations, separated by 15 minutes drive on the highway and a river. But completely different clientele. I mean, you'd ask people to go from Little Rock to go to North Little Rock, or North Little Rock to go to Little Rock. It was asking them to go to the dark side of the moon. Like, oh no, I never crossed that river. And you know,
so let me ask you this question:
different audiences.
As a former comic shop owner, let's say you still had a shop now, right? And you know you're doing these YouTube shows, and you're seeing these, you know, new books that are hitting crowdfunding, right? You know, you're seeing all these gorgeous books, whether it be Indiegogo or Kickstarter. Do you say to yourself, man, if I still have my shop, I would definitely want to get some of those in the shop, some of those in the shop, and some of those in the shop, because I think those would sell. Do you ever have those thoughts?
If they had retailer levels, I would do it. Yeah, because you know, I always wanted something more than what you know, Diamond was offering. I felt like Diamond, when it was just Diamond, it was strangling the market, and I mean, it was like they put a lid on the market. They were just nailing it down as tight as they could, because Marvel and DC like, hey, this is our playground. We don't want anybody else messing up our sandbox, and so it was hard for independents to find. You know, a place. And, you know, I've been doing this since independent market really first started. And I was carrying some of the first independent comics. I remember when Marvel Fan first started. That was Marvel's first comic line, or first comic title that was just for direct sale only stores. And then all of a sudden you had independent publishers like First Comics, Eclipse, a whole lot of other comics, Pacific Comics. I was carrying all their line as they were coming out.
Oh, yeah. Well, I remember I'll tell
exploded.
you. Well, I'll tell you, you know, you kind of bring up a memory, like, you know, you talk about like, you know, being one of the first guys in indie comics. I remember being like 14. You think when you're 14, you're probably only going to be about Batman, Spider-Man, X-Men. But I was the guy that saw, oh, wow, what's this cool looking Turtles book, and picked it up. Oh, wow, what's this weird rabbit called Usagi Yojimbo, and go pick it up. I was like, oh, cool. Eternity Comics, Comico, Robotech. Oh, yeah, I'm grabbing some of that, you know, Ninja High School. Yeah,
you're asking how I order. And I remember looking through the previews catalog going, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Right.
Such an odd title, but it's all the major food groups. You have Teen. All right. Teen Titans was big at the time. Mutant. Okay. X-Men was big at the time. Ninjas. Well, Frank Miller's Ninjas was a big thing at the time. And then, you know, Turtles. Well, Funny Animals, Disney Ducks, and Mickey Mouse. You know, so it's like it took all the four major food groups and just mashed them all up together. It's like, you know, I'm going to order some of that just out of a lark. And so my area probably has more #1 first prints of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles floating around most of the other markets of the country. And I bought a few of them back and resold them several times.
I can tell
I
RJ's playing with his light.
It did well.
Yeah, I'm getting to the point where the sunlight that was coming through the
Yeah.
window is
I could tell
not
like
enough.
the sun is going down because I have a green screen too when I decide to use it, right?
Yeah.
And if the lighting changes, you see all the little gray spots appear all over the screen. You know what I mean?
I've got a LED lamp here which is really bright, which is seems to be working better than this lamp up here, which is what you would clamp onto a car hood if you were working on the engine in your garage.
That's what I'm using right now. That's why I'm not on camera much because it's so fucking dark in here. It's like the goddamn bat cave. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. But yeah, Michael, you talk about Diamond having the stranglehold on the industry.
Yeah.
Gosh, funny that was like,
Guys
collecting
who
up
are
these
independently
crowdfunded
published.
books and
they'd be telling me,
Yeah.
like, look,
So,
my book makes money, but Diamond says we're not worth their time because they, got 90% of their money from 10% of the work with Marvel and DC, and the other 90% of the work was with smaller publishers like myself and other guys and like Antarctica. And there's some people that said we just don't want to sell your stuff anymore because you might be profitable, but it's not worth our time. And they would just completely cut them off in the market. Well, you can't grow a crop if you can't get it to market.
That's right. So that's why there's these other distributors kind of came up, but it wasn't worth the retailer's time to say, now I've got to go through another book and place a separate order. Oh, that looks nice. But you know where that's not at?
this here's the Randy Green cover that will be on Exciting Comics 17. This is the one that they wanted to use, but I'm going to put a few of these up on my Kickstarter because I got about 10 left. So there'll be like a limited add-on. If you want the original one before, like, the Antarctic trade dress and all that stuff, you'll have to get it through me.
Yeah.
What I mean?
And by the way, Larry, when we started this stream, you had $44,613. You now have $4,660.
I've noticed that, brother. And it looks even better on my end, right? Because I'm in Canada. And so in Canadian duck bucks, that equals $5,831, which means it looks like we're, $59 away from being $159 from being away, Canadian dollars, from being fully funded.
Michael, when we do these
for
funding
first-hand
shows,
experience, the Kickstarter can do well while you're talking to RJ.
Well, this is my 9th one. The last one we did 16 grand Canadian, which was about 12 grand American. So it was a smash hit. It was the best one we ever done. We're hoping to duplicate that. There's no guarantees in that. It's again a roll of the dice, but first step is get funded. And we're only 24 hours into it, so we're basically there. And then the next step, what can we do with the next 28, 29 days to get this at 5 figures, Now
let's make the money you really need. So, Michael, you saw this when we were crowdfunding the Robert E. Howard. Whenever it goes up during our show, if we're promoting it, it's our shake and bake moment.
It's shake and bake, and I help.
Where's the beef?
Yes, something like that. Speaking of Kickstarters and Michael, how is that Robert E. Howard art chronology going?
Oh, it's doing great. I mean, we're getting a few new pledges every day. When we blew out the gates with $50,000 on the first day, just a few people a day, like, oh, we got the pilgrims coming by. At first, you had the barbarian masses pounding down the gate all at one time because we funded like within a couple hours, and so it's still plugging right along there. It's right now it's a little bit ahead of what the Edgar Rice Burroughs chronology was.
When you think about the art,
about 92,000.
When you think about the art from Conan the Barbarian, Robert E. Howard, to my understanding, that's open domain now, public domain. You have a Blaze Studios that's doing the Conan comics now. You have Dynamite that has Red Sonja. I'm not sure how much Red Sonja ties into the Robert E. Howard stuff, and it's sort of like an offshoot of it. But Conan, man, it's still immensely popular. And you get like that, gorgeous sort of Frezza looking sort of style artwork thrown into a book, and you get the whole collection of it. Yeah, it's going to sell well. You know what I mean? Like,
here's how Red Sonja
people know what it is.
Kind of, sort of, Robert E. Howard stuff. Robert E. Howard had a Red Sonja in his books, Sonya, and Roy Thomas basically created Sonja. Same character, but different spelling. So trademark. Hey. So Red Sonja is actually a Marvel Comics product, right?
Sort of.
Red Sonja owned by Red Sonja Properties. That got separated out from all the other Conan properties years past, and so right now everything I'll be in my book won't have anything to do with Red Sonja. But right now Dynamite's got exclusive on publishing it. But
Yeah.
Red Sonja Properties owns Red Sonja, and so everything I'm doing is with the Condon Properties and the Cabinet Group licensed through them.
I mean, Marvel it started with Marvel as a comic book. Like I have her first appearance, so it's in Conan number 23, I think. From the Marvel days, that was Red Sonja's first appearance in comics. But he's right, it's its own sort of license, and Dynamite's got the has that, and if they're smart, they'll never let it go. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And
they're
one
doing
thing you
everything with
mentioned
Red
there,
Sonja.
RJ, was about Roy Thomas. How he started that. Roy's come on board on my. And this is something I don't think we've even announced it on the Kickstarter yet. That Roy's volunteered to do introductions on all 4 books.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
I
wouldn't have
want
the Barbarian like we know him now if it hadn't been for Roy.
Okay, I need to use your connection now because he's one of the people I wanted to have on 2 weeks from now for the Jack Kirby special. And I was never able to get through his agent because Roy worked with Jack, and he would have some Jack stories to tell. So, and yeah, everybody who's watching right now, 2 weeks from now when we do the LCS Guys show, it will be Jack Kirby's birthday. So we're going to have people on here who worked with Jack Kirby and who can give some personal reminiscences on the King.
Yeah, hail to the King, brother.
Absolutely.
Jack the King Kirby.
That's it, man. That's it. Without Jack Kirby, I don't know if comics would be like the way they are, or the way they have been in recent years. I mean, how many people has Jack Kirby influenced? Almost every artist I see is going to give Jack Kirby credit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, he did for comics what Citizen Kane did for movies. Like, wait, we don't have to look flat on at the action. We can get these interesting camera angles and all this cinematography that we've got now. I am not green, and yet the world is showing through me. That's interesting.
Jack was a spectacular storyteller. The way he could arrange the panel arrangement, you don't need to have words to read a Jack Kirby comic.
Yeah, which is good because Stan didn't give him many. So,
well, it's not that whole sort of Marvel style way of doing comics. You draw it, and I'll write in the dialogue later. Excelsior,
Yeah. So
these
guys fight
romance comics. So, when he's putting in the words on that, it's like it was does Betty like me, and everyone's like, wow, angst with comic heroes. It's a new genre. And he was just still writing romance comics he'd written all through the 50s.
Yes. Yeah, he was, and we could do with somebody right. I don't think that's a genre that's being tapped right now. We're seeing some of the genres come back, especially through crowdfunding. We're seeing a lot of westerns lately, Michael, and they're really good-looking westerns. But I haven't seen anybody doing the romance thing.
That's been covered in the YA sort of young adult sort of novels.
Leave YA alone.
Manga does very well with it.
Manga does very well. Yeah,
it's true, but that's sort of where that genre has drifted off to. You know what I mean? As far as the Western comics go, they look cool. They don't appeal to me. I never was a big Western comics book fan guy. I remember them. Same thing, sort of like with the war sort of comics, right? Like all I remember from war comics was 2 comics, fucking Sergeant Rock and the Nam. You know what I mean?
The Nam, yeah. But no, I was huge into Unknown Soldier, The Haunted Tank. And then with the Westerns, it was Jonah Hex and Scalp Hunter and Batlash. So I loved all it. Weird War Tales was my jam because that was like you got these war stories, but there'd be a science fiction or a horror element thrown into it. So it was almost like Tales of the Unexpected during the war stories. That was the other genre we had, the horror books.
Remember that island with dinosaurs on it that all the World War II guys ended up on?
The war that time forgot.
Yeah.
That was an ongoing short story.
I'll tell you what is making a resurgence, and if things work out the way I hope they will, and I have a little extra funds, is Jungle Girl sort of comic books, right?
Yeah.
And I got my mine on doing like a fantasy Jungle Girl style comic. It'd be like Jungle Girl meets Red Sonja sort of stuff, based on my own sort of like Dungeons and Dragons world I had when I was a teen, and just run comics that way, But before I get there, we have to make sure that NYOBI is well taken care of first,
All right, so before we wrap things up here for the night, Michael, last 2 weeks, what have you been shipping out a lot of, and I used to ask you what stayed on the shelf and didn't sell, but you don't have that happen anymore. So
yeah.
we have to deduce what wouldn't sell by what wasn't asked for.
Yeah, it's amazing, what doesn't sell anymore. I mean, it's new comics. I mean, new number ones. People just don't care. I mean, I don't care what it is. That new I Am Batman. where you have a black Batman. That I only had a couple of people interested in that. Just the new Joker punchline, dead on arrival. I mean, no one cared.
Really?
Just the restarting, the restarting. It's just people are just exhausted with it, and they don't want to try. People want something, a title that do best for me. Flash, it's got a high number, it's still going strong. Batman got a high number, still going strong. Detective, Superman, even though the writer is not very exciting, it's still got decent numbers. And it's all the series that have a long history. That's what does well. That's why whenever they want to try to change a character and retcon a character, they'll pick an established one because they know if they start a new one, it's not going to sell. And I wish they would just re-embrace. Okay, we're going to have these reliable series. We can still experiment and give you new stuff, but let's give you some reliable stuff as the core group and then build around it.
Well, the problem with putting out a new number one every 3 months is that you destroyed the appeal of having a number one, right? The idea of having a number one, back in the day was you had the first issue of something. It was going to be a collector's item. It was going to be something that maybe, it
would run 300-400 issues. Yeah, but to get a number one.
Well, not only that, but maybe that number one was going to be worth money someday. Like people bought number ones as an investment purpose, right? Now that's been completely demolished. A number one means nothing now. The only thing that means anything for investing in comic books, as far as like, you buying a comic and in 5 years it's worth some money, is key issue first appearances.
Yeah. I mean, I was resorting all my comics a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, had them all out. And I was going through the Batman because what I do is I alphabetize them and then I have to put them, in numerical order. And now we have to do by volume order because, they stop and restart. And I'd be like in stacking up the Batman titles, like, okay, here's Batman 25. Where's Batman 26? Well, that's Batman 26. It looks like it would follow this one, but it doesn't because it's 26 of the next volume out. The restart was so close together from the New 52 to Rebirth that, and I don't know what number it was, but it was like there were two Batmans of the same number, two different volumes, and the covers were both Batman fighting the Joker. Same issue number, different writers. I'm like, and almost the same art style. I was like, I had to open them up to find out when they were done.
Yeah, quit switching it around, bait switching on the customers. I'll tell you what, a satisfied customer buys so much more than a dissatisfied one. I remember back when trading cards actually sold well back in the 90s. And the best-selling set of trading cards ever was the X-Men Series 2, all with art by Jim Lee. You bought a box of that. You not only got the complete set of regular cards, you got 2 sets of the foils. Well,
I remember those cards.
Well, they'll just buy the one box be done. But what happens? People
I was a kid buying
them. They come back and they buy multiple boxes. Had the whole set.
And not only did I buy those cards, but McFarlane had the Spider-Man button set out. I fucking bought the shit out of that. And then trading cards, obviously took a big dive, man. You know what I mean? Sports cards now are starting to sort of make a new resurgence. There's lots of like sports cards YouTube channels I'm seeing pop up and stuff. But and trading cards actually are really big on crowdfunding right now. People are trying to collect like indie trading cards. It's a big thing with some people. That's a big tchotchke that people want, and we got them.
Yeah. I liked the chase when it was collecting cards. I never bought a whole box of something because I never had that kind of available income. I was like,
me either.
Give me 2 packs of that, and then I'd say, okay, here's a new one. Here's a new one. Got that one. Ooh, I got a foil this time. I got 3 of these already. So I would have all these leftover cards. But when you see a campaign, I always say the campaigns should they should collaborate together. Sort of like how you're linking over to somebody else's campaign and they're linking back to yours.
Yeah.
Like what? Imagine if
and that
you had a trading card and they had a trading card, and
Right.
the 2 trading cards went together to form one picture.
Well, had we planned it enough in advance, we could have done that. But basically, we just had to use the same card for both because it was like a last minute sort of deal we made. But I'll tell you, that's a great idea. And I'm going to be doing a second campaign for this. There'll be an Indiegogo once this is done and fulfilled. We're going to bring this back. We'll do a brand new cover for Indiegogo customers. But Max and I from Mary Machine Gun, we're going to do a trading card together. You know what I mean? It's going to be Mary Machine Gun and NYOBI. So maybe what we'll do is do that split idea that you just said. People can get the Mary Machine Gun half from Max and people can get the NYOBI half from me. That's not bad, RJ. I like it.
Well, yeah. I mean, the idea used to be bigger. I was like, you should get 10 people doing it, or 9 people doing it, and that way when you put them all in the page, you got that X-Men Fleer effect where all 9 made the
That's a
same
lot to coordinate.
That's a lot to coordinate. But if you can get 2 of them, they're like, oh, I bought this one. I wasn't going to buy that one, but now I have to because I got to complete what I got from this one. They did sort of that kind of a thing with Perfect 10 and the Embrace. The problem there was that Perfect 10 was in the UK and the Embrace was domestic, and the UK book was a lot to ship, and they didn't talk to me first. They're talking to me now. I'm shipping the Embrace, but we'll be talking with Perfect 10 hopefully for their second book, and getting them down on that shipping cost. But yeah, if you bought both campaigns, then you got a print, but you had to buy from both campaigns to get this special print.
It's funny you mentioned the trading card thing, though. I have a binder here, right?
I see that.
Yeah, well, I mean, in this binder is a bunch of NYOBI stuff and papers and shit, but in the back of the binder, if everything doesn't fall apart on me here, is trading cards, right?
Yeah. Oh, Lady Death trading cards.
The top 2 are NYOBI trading cards.
Yes.
But as you flip through it, though, right? Like, again, it's an old binder. Things are falling apart, but
yeah.
So lots of them. Dude, I mean, if you're going to get the cards, put them in something nice, like.
Oh, yeah. Were you getting them out of Wizard Magazine before?
Well, lots of these come from Kickstarters.
Okay. All the Lady Deaths?
Lady Deaths are Kickstarters, dude.
Okay, because I know Wizard Magazine used to put like trading cards in their magazines a lot of the time.
This is all crowdfunded stuff right here. I got a nice collection of crowdfunded trading cards, and it's not even something I meant to do. It's just, I just kept getting these cards, and I'm like, where in the fuck am I going to put all these cards?
Yeah. Get the page. You're outing your Funko Pop collection too while you're there.
There's not many. There's about 30 of them, and they're the coolest Funkos ever. There's a bunch of X-Men. There's a Chung-Li there. There's a Kitty Pryde, Emma Frost,
the Giants.
Bounty Hunter, Princess Leia. Tarna from Heavy Metal Magazine. That was a rare one too.
I bet it was rare. I had never heard of that one. Oh, you're losing a page. I'm going to let you get that fixed up here.
That's all right. Just saying, man. So trading cards are a big thing in the indie market right now. People want these things, and I just got a probably good 10 pages of trading cards from various campaigns. A lot of them are the Lady Death stuff, but a good couple pages is just like from Fire Bitch or from CB Zane and
the Karen Nicole thing. Yeah,
exactly.
Keely Chow's in the chat that wants to know what's going on. We're just kind of wrapping up the show, Keely, and Mr. Yanafui says, Larry has a face. He is handsome.
He is pretty fucking cute.
You have a sound button for everything, sir.
Of course I do.
Yeah.
One shall stand, one shall fall.
Why throw away your life so recklessly?
Well, we tried to get you up over the $47.95 goal here. You are, in American dollars, you are $135 away.
So close. So close. That's so and I'll probably hit it tonight. And then, again, it will be a grind from there. I mean, I'm going to go live tonight, probably about 20 minutes after I'm done with you, and just go on my own channel and push some more. I did a 7.5 hour marathon live stream last night.
Ooh. Oh, that's hard.
Yeah, man, I might do it again tonight. I don't know if I'll go for 7.5 hours, but I'll probably be on for a good 3, 4,
We'll pop in and say hi. I've done the 12-hour thing before on a Saturday. But,
right.
But it was a while back, and I'm going to have to do that again sometime. That was kind of fun. Michael, any parting thoughts? You told us what wasn't selling, I guess. You said what's really selling still is the long-running shows, the long-running books. So
the reliable titles that people know it's going to be there.
What's the weirdest thing people ask you for? Like an obscure title or something that it's like the runaway surprise hit, if you will.
Nothing just jumps out right now. At least nothing recently. Obviously I've got a lot of weird requests over the years. But right now there's just nothing that's a surprise. I mean, it's pretty much
like for your business. Is it like an eBay store?
I've got an eBay store too. What it is when I closed my stores, I couldn't just leave all my regular customers hanging out to dry, and so they all converted mail order. So on the subscription services, instead of them coming to pick them up, I just mail them to them every month.
Okay, so let me pause you there because I don't understand how that does work. So you don't have a physical store, but yet you still get books through Diamond that comes to your house and you mail them out.
Yes.
Yeah.
When
Are you
Diamond
going
says
to
the
are
store
you
says-
going to order Exciting Comics number 17 then to mail out to customers?
If I get anybody asking for it, but see, I don't have a shelf anymore for people to discover it off the shelf. See, when I had a store, I would order things from the shelf and sell a lot of things on impulse buy. So that was about, a big part of what my market was. When I closed my stores, now it's just what people tell me they want. That's all I carry. And then I just gather them up through months. Some people want to be shipped every week. Some people want to be shipped every 2 weeks. Most people want to be shipped once a month.
Sure.
And then I just ship them out. Some people once every 2 months. And so I just ship them out on a regular basis as the stuff comes in.
So you order to request now, sort of.
Yeah. I no longer order to speculation. Right.
So
And
so
I
the thing
I
is,
still also have an online store where I have an eBay store. I started that up before I closed my storefronts, and basically I just took all that inventory that was specifically going to be for those stores. I just kept them, and I'm still selling stuff online. It's amazing. I had books that I couldn't sell for $5, $10 at my store. Put them on eBay, you get $300. I mean, it's just amazing.
Dude, it's crazy how that works.
Market is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to list some books on eBay here tomorrow or later on because I need to rake in some more cash. Got to.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So, folks, the lesson here is that if you want to get Exciting Comics number 17 at your local comic shop, don't go in the day it comes out and say, "Hey, where's Exciting Comics number 17?" Go there now and tell them you want Exciting Comics number 17 so that they can make sure it's in the store for you.
I'll tell you, my local shop has to have it written down by their computer because they're tired of looking it up. The code, they got the code written down by the computer. So my local shop, people are like, yeah, I want that Exciting Comics, and the guy's just like, the NYOBI one. They're like, yeah, okay, no, we got it right here. You know what I mean?
Put another check by it. We're gonna get more of those.
Exactly, and that's how you get sold in local stores. And they get enough people asking, they're going to carry extra for the shelf too. Because say, okay, we got all these people want this. How many other people just haven't said it?
Exactly. All right, guys, been a productive night. I think we had some good discussion here on how people can get their books into a retail store. Of course, if you want to have somebody represent you doing that, Critical Blast Logistics is shipping books out. This is Arrival Today, Sunrise Blossom, and the extra copies of this are going. Let me get rid of my Gorbachev. No, it didn't work. I'm disintegrating right in front of us all. We ship out the books, and what we have left over extra, we are going to be marketing to 2,500 different store contacts that we have, plus Amazon. So, we will continue to sell your crowdfunded book for you after your campaign is closed. We'll be marking them up because they're out of print, but you will still get back your ask price that you had on your campaign. So this $30 book, the leftovers will be marketed to comic shops as, an out of print, overseas crowdfunded limited edition book, probably for $33 to $35. I'm going to make the money on that. And the $30 is going to go back to Nina Aberline, who created the book in the first place. So
beautiful.
That's just how we operate on that. It's a very slim margin, but that you're used to working on slim margins, right, Michael?
Oh, I know all about that. Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on, brother. I won't be in the after party, so I gotta get ready and stream another show.
I hear you. All right.
Hope it continues to do well.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for showing up. Everybody in the chat, appreciate you being here. We don't have a show without you. If you are interested in the new NYOBI project, NYOBI Origins #1, the link to the Kickstarter, I've thrown it out into the chat twice, but if you're watching on the replay, it's right down there below the video. It's the very first line. And then beyond that, if you want to help out the LCS guys who are here, all their websites are here, including Michael's website, thewildstars.com. Where you can go in there and see some more of this Robert E. Howard chronology he's working on, with a link to the Kickstarter that will allow you to back this project. It's a gorgeous 4-volume. One of them is a leather-bound edition. The other one is the printed edition, and it's high-quality reproduction of every single Robert E. Howard Conan cover. Not just Conan covers, but if he had... Let me make sure I understand this right, Michael. If he had a story that wasn't on the cover, you still print the cover, but in a smaller version.
Correct.
But if
Yeah.
it's a cover story, it gets the big one. So starting with the pulps, going through the paperback novels, then on into the comic books, which takes up 2 volumes of this slipcase. This is 1,500 pages, which is available, by the way, as a PDF. So, you know, if you don't have
And
space
in a leather edition too. We revealed what the leather foil is going to look like this week.
Oh, nice. Because you showed me the Edgar Rice Burroughs foil leather edition. So
yeah, and we got a nice full image on the Robert E. Howard one too. Everyone's going to like it.
Well, listen. I mean, I don't know what you're doing tomorrow night, Mike, but I do a show every Sunday night. It's a late show. It starts at like around 10 p.m. Eastern. But you know, if you want to come on and talk about, you know, the book, I mean, I don't know how to get a hold of you though. So,
well,
are you on Facebook? Or are you on the Twitter? Or
he's not on Twitter. He's sane.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a Twitter guy. Yeah, I am on Facebook though.
All right, I'm gonna look you up right meow. If you want to come on tomorrow night, we're having Nandor Schaefer Fox come on. Fox Schaefer.
Oh, he's good. He's good.
Yeah, he'll be on tomorrow night as well. So
yeah, I had him on earlier this week.
But I'm always appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, man. Well,
That's
you
what we
know,
do.
this is what you got to do. You got to pay it forward a little bit. You guys have me on your show, and then I say, you know what, guys, come on over to my show. You know.
Happy to.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
while you guys are working that out, I'm going to say goodbye to the chat. We do not have a show without you guys being here, and we just hope you had a blast while you were here. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks. We'll see you again, hopefully tomorrow night, because we're going to have open mic. But in 2 weeks, the LCS guys, Jack Kirby's birthday. Bring presents. We'll have